This is the American Arson podcast, where our goal is to spark creativity. Whether you're a musician, an artist, a writer, or an entrepreneur, we're here to provide you with tools, tips, and insight from professionals and creatives that you can use to inform and inspire your own journey.
Alrighty, guys. So today we have Nate Parrish joining us to talk about his time playing guitar in Kutless, as well as his incredible new solo album.
Yeah, absolutely. We also get to talk about some fun stuff like being known as the guy who always orders a certain thing at a fast food place, and Nate does a little bit of time traveling and peeks into the future for us. So
You get to find out if the Lions win a Super Bowl.
Right. Which I think we all know the answer to that. But just a quick announcement. This is going to be the last episode of season 1 of the American Arson podcast. We're going to take a few weeks off, but don't worry, we'll be back soon. We're going to keep recording these episodes, and we'll get some new content out to you guys in a few weeks.
Yeah, so we'll be back in a few weeks. If you haven't already, in the meantime, while you're catching up on these episodes, please head right below the video if you're watching or if you're listening on whatever platform you're listening, and give the podcast a like or a follow. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a lot, allowing us to have more features to be able to deliver you guys content, but it also lets you guys know when we pop out a new episode, and we might be doing some like exclusive content for subscribers down the line too. So you don't want to miss out on that.
Absolutely. With all that said, here's Nate. Nate, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm in Bakersfield, California.
Yeah.
So everything's on fire. We're actually good here, but the smoke is, So it's kind of like, it's like fall. I'm like, oh, it's actually pretty overcast today. Like, no, that's ash and smoke.
Oh man,
I've been seeing some of the pictures that just in some places it just looks like a video game or something.
Yeah,
it's unreal.
It's crazy. But what I was gonna say, there's a new Nashville hot chicken place that opened. So I just had that, and I went there 2 nights in a row. And it was the same guy. I was like, please God, let it be a different person.
Right.
He's like, we're back, huh? I'm like, no, this is my first time. I wouldn't do this twice in a row, sir.
Yeah, I remember.
You can never have too much hot chicken.
Right.
It's so good.
I remember near the end of my bachelor days when I walked into a Domino's at like 1 a.m. to pick up a pizza, and the guy actually said to me, "See you tomorrow." And at that point, I knew I was probably going to the well.
That's when you knew you had to repent.
Right.
That's how I am with the extra shots of my coffee. I asked for like 4 extra shots out of my coffee one time because I just like pulled an all-nighter, and I was.
Well, you don't sleep, obviously. You're bad.
Yeah, exactly. There you go, guys. Also, my Chuck Norris post.
Oh, I've seen
because but every time I walk into that Starbucks now, like they know, like they just look at me and like you're just like, how many?
Right.
I'm like,
it's like cool, but then also kind of sad, for you. For the we like Popeye's chicken, my wife. So we lead worship on Sundays. When we used to have church, do you guys remember church?
I remember. It's a place,
long
right?
ago.
I remember.
Yeah, it was like a fad.
I remember
more
places.
than. I remember more than 5 people being in one place at a time.
Yeah, it was but we lead worship, a couple services, and so by the time you're done, you're just like starving. And obviously, Popeye sounds amazing. So we would go there every Sunday after church, and we really like the Mardi Gras mustard. And eventually this happened where I went by myself one time to pick it up, and the lady goes, "Oh, hey, it's Mr. Mustard." And she's like, "That's what we call you." Like,
you should have said, "That's Colonel Mustard" to you.
Actually, what I said was, "You can just keep the food. I have to go. I'm gonna have to go."
A little bit of shame now.
So much shame, dude. I was like, it's kind of cool, but not really.
Yeah, there's a Popeyes less than a mile from my house, and when the chicken sandwich came off, the lines were so long that there were people just stopped in the road. They had already wrapped around the building one full time. There wasn't room to wrap around the building another time, and so they were just out into the main road, which is like a 5-lane, busy road, and people are just parked in the road waiting.
I remember that when the sandwich came out, it was like, have you guys never had? It's the same chicken. They just put it on bread on it.
Was it? Help me remember. Was it during the early stages of the COVID times when it came out?
It was pre-COVID.
Oh, it was. Okay.
It was. I was trying to remember what it was. I think it was like January, February.
Okay.
But I remember being mad because I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to Popeyes like I've done every Sunday for the past 6 years. And there was like, why are there so many people here? You haven't heard? They have a chicken sandwich. Like, I don't care about that. I need my strips and my mustard.
Oh man!
I'm like just yelling at them like from the back of the line. It's me, Mr. Mustard.
Right. Well, they should have given you like a reserved parking space, or just like Mr. Mustard parking space right there.
So, needless to say, I'm a creature of habit, and
yeah.
So you and us went kind of down the same path earlier this year. We both released albums right in the middle of the pandemic with no opportunity to play live or tour or support them at all. And yours came out, it was late May, correct?
June 19th.
June. Okay. So did you have any second thoughts about putting it on? I know the wheels had probably been turning at that point for a while, and you had probably already done all the, the promotion and all that release stuff, but did you ever consider pushing it, or did you just decide to roll with it?
So it was kind of a different approach. So originally what I started doing was in June of last year, I had got some home recording stuff, just real basic stuff, and was like, I'm just gonna sit and record and release a song a month. So I kind of like gave myself parameters. So it's like, whatever the song is or whatever comes out, that's what it's gonna be about. I'm not gonna overthink it. I'm not gonna go crazy on the instrumentation. It's gonna be punk rock, and or at least my version of that that's debatable.
But,
but it's gonna be what it is, and it's gonna be released every month, and I would do that for a year. So that was the plan.
Yeah.
And so I got to, I think, 6 months in, and then I had also been recording other songs. So I finished one, but all right, cool, I'll move on to another song, or here's an idea I have. And eventually I was like, I could probably just do an album at this point. And so that was right around April was the last single.
Okay.
So yeah, we're in the pandemic at that point. So I just was like, well, I want to release these songs. I know it's kind of sucky. You can't go out and play, but at the same time, as a solo artist, and I'm at home, like I'm not in a studio, I'm at home with this laptop recording everything except the drums. And then I'd have my buddy come in and play bass on some songs. Okay. So I didn't really have like a band per se. So there wasn't like this huge, like, oh, I got to get out and play. It's like, well, it's kind of just like, these are my songs.
Right.
So I thought about it for a second, but then, it kind of hit me. I was like, this is probably honestly the perfect time to release specifically the songs that I was writing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the subject is like, well, I have to.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
And then the last song on the album I wrote in March. So I actually took another song off the album that was done.
Okay.
Because that one was like addressing like the kind of the hopelessness of the pandemic. You're kind of feeling it at that point.
Yeah.
March and April. So record that and then put it on the album and snuck it in there.
Yeah.
Did you have to kind of switch gears in how you were planning to promote it? Did you have shows like lined up, and then you had to kind of say, you know what, I'm going to go, the social media route or whatever? How, what did you originally have in your mind, and then how did it end up being different?
I just had everything released or just pointed towards my MySpace page. And so it really caused me to rethink my,
right.
But I didn't really have, I had a CD release thing planned.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because so the guys you'll see in the music video, those are my friends. We actually all lead worship together. So that's like
cool.
the worship.
That's awesome.
And so we have like built-in chemistry already. So I would show them a song and be like, all right, here's a song, learn it, and we're going to do a video tomorrow. And they're like, all right, cool. And so,
that's amazing.
But so that was going to be my band. And but I didn't have these big plans of like, doing that because summers, I play in Kutless. I've been doing that for 5 years.
Yeah.
So our summers are, we go out and do festivals, or we don't really tour during the summer so much. But we had some stuff, like I was supposed to be going to Germany in a couple of weeks, and had some shows in during the summer. So for me, it wasn't a huge shift. It was mostly like, okay. And weirdly, I didn't really expect any kind of reception on my album. I figured it'd come out and my mom would be like, "Oh, Nate, why are you so angry? I like your album. Let's talk." But I think maybe because of that, it got way more traction than it would have. Like I discovered you guys just through like MySpace, or not. I'm actually saying MySpace. Facebook.
Yeah, your joke is backfiring on you.
Maybe I just get a MySpace page. But
we talked about in one episode how Tom needs to bring it back and just run for president.
Dude, listen, Tom, if you're listening, you relaunch MySpace because Facebook is so poisonous now. You could start from scratch and cut out all the stuff that we hate.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll migrate back over, bro.
Hey, if you are listening, Tom, we're like, you can use us. We'll be your sounding boards. Bring us on the team. Like, we got nothing to do right now. We can't go on the road. Like, let's, we'll take 1% of what you would have offered anyone else.
Or yes. We don't even need money. Just let us write the terms of service. And there's only going to be one rule: no middle-aged people fighting about politics angry on the internet. That's it. That's the only rule.
That's the only
Give
rule.
us social media without that, and we're good to go.
Yeah, I think that should cover it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then as long as I get to be one of those independent fact checkers, I think we're all good.
Yeah.
I just everything's false. Like, my sister graduated. That's false.
Right.
She failed. But so I didn't really have to make you had a question. I didn't have a big shift necessarily. It was more like, okay, so this is kind of cool too, because of the church. We lead worship. My day job, if you will, is a creative director at our church. And so over all the video and graphics and all that stuff. So we had already been putting together like our quarantine style worship. So where everyone would film at home, and I would put the videos together, and we'd mix the audio. So I was like, well, I could still do like videos and stuff that way. So I started, I did a cover with Joey from Disciple on drums. And the guy who plays sax on my album, he's in Virginia Beach. So I did a cover of a Social D song, just using the quarantine stuff that I had already been doing. So you just kind of adapt, and you roll with the punches. I think it would have been easy. And there's times where I was like, man, this sucks. But I think you just got to work through that, and then just say, okay, now how can I use this? And how can I, it basically forces you to adapt.
Yeah.
And you can actually get more creative that way.
Absolutely. That's really cool.
Like, I'm not a full-time, even with Kutless, we're not full-time touring anymore. So, but you got, I don't know what your guys' touring schedule is like. I'm sure it's busier than ours, but it is a huge bummer. A lot of friends, like I talked about, Joey from Disciple, he's a great dude, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
That's been his job for years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
there's definitely bands out there that tour more than us and that have been more affected than us by it, and we're well aware of that. So we're trying to keep perspective on that as well. But that's a good point. I'm glad that you mentioned the dude who played sax on your album, because that really stood out. It's on I'm a Wreck, right?
Absolutely.
Where the sax roars in,
which is an incredible song, by the way. That was the first one I listened to, and I was like, yep, I'm in.
And if somebody hasn't listened to it, I guess what I would describe it as is sort of like Americana infused punk rock. So it gives me kind of the vibe of like a Gaslight Anthem, or even like Springsteen kind of roots, that kind of East Coast vibe. Very different, obviously, than the music that you're playing with Kutless. So
completely different.
What made you decide to go down that road, or is that kind of your roots?
So that's why I put the flag up. I was like, I gotta talk about Springsteen. I gotta have a flag. But no, you nailed it. Like, I love. I grew up. Luckily, my parents were into good music, so I grew up on Springsteen. I didn't like Cash so much when I was a kid, because I was like, slow, or Bob Dylan. I'm like, every song, that harmonica frequency would just kill my ears. But now I love it. But so I grew up on a lot of that Americana rock and roll, Fleetwood Mac. Like, my sister's name is Rhiannon after the song. So And then so that was the music of my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I found my music, it was like, I think, I was introduced to at least the Christian side of punk rock through MXPX, like every other person on planet Earth.
Yeah.
But, that was my gateway. And then my sister was really into Rancid and Green Day. And then when I found Social Distortion, that's when it clicked for me. I was like, so these guys sound different. They sound kind of like that Americana stuff, but like the attitude. And so I just loved them. And so that was like their Live at the Roxy album, and White Light, White Heat, White Trash was just like amazing. And I got there a CD from a friend who bought it, and he's like, this band sucks. They're trying to rip off Green Day. And now I want to go back in time and punch him in the face.
Yeah, like these bands don't sound anything alike.
Yeah, the band that started in 1979. Yeah. But so, when I started this project, I had been in bands for years. My first band, I had playing guitar for 2 weeks, and I got in this band there was this old punk rock band named Shop 11 Phoenix. I don't know if that rings a bell, but they were on Betty Rocket Records, and they wanted to do a side band. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I played guitar, and we had our first show, and we opened for the Huntingtons, which was like one of my favorite bands. Yeah. And I was like, cool, I made it. And then we broke up after that show.
Oh man.
Oh no.
Yeah. And so then I'm like trying to, I need a band. So my trajectory was all like thrown off, and somehow I found myself into worship music. I just through youth group stuff, and so I tried to carry those influences with me. It doesn't always translate. So by the time, fast forward whatever many years now, I'm like, I never really sat down and wrote a solo album. That was just what I wanted to say. I was playing the instruments. I was doing what I wanted to do. I didn't have
your sound.
I didn't have to try to think, can the congregation sing this, or is this gonna piss off, the Christian mom?
Right.
I don't have to think about any of it.
Yeah,
just do it. It was like the best experience, and so yeah, kind of fusing those influences, like the Springsteen thing. I was listening to him today, and the Gaslight Anthem, I got that too, but I have never really listened to them. So I went and I was like, I listened to him. I'm like, totally.
Especially the earlier albums, they had more punk influence than I think some of the later stuff did.
That's so I like, people are like, what's your genre? And that's like the hardest question to answer.
Yeah.
But I usually say punk or rock and roll. I don't know.
I absolutely can't. Like, people could probably tell it in my reaction that I just cringe when someone that doesn't know me, or like one of my buddies will be like, mention the band, and there'll be someone else that doesn't know me will be like, oh, what kind of music do you play? What's it sound like? And
what's it sound like? Yeah. No, it's
like,
true.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think it's tough, maybe a little harder for us to ever analyze our own music because I'll think one thing and then we'll see in the comments all the time people will like mention something like, oh, this sounds like so and so, and some of them are ridiculous, but then some of them I'm like, wait, actually I would have never thought of that.
Yeah, like, some of them are really ridiculous.
Nailed it. After someone brought it to my attention, they're like, oh, you kind of sound like Springsteen, in punk rock. And I was like, that's exactly what it is. But at the time, I'm just doing whatever. One time there was a review that was written, and they're like, it opens with the hard charging ska influenced song, I'm a Wreck. And I was like, I hate ska. So
I think people automatically associate anything that has a horn in it as something ska, but if they were to go back and look at some of those,
they don't know what real ska is.
Well, yeah, right. But even just the horn influence in that kind of Americana rock and roll, especially the East Coast stuff. I mean, Springsteen did it a lot, totally. But it's really cool. It's really unique because I think when ska blew up kind of as its own thing, you had rock bands that were a lot more hesitant to put horns in their songs because they didn't
they don't want to be associated with it.
So
yeah, so that song particularly was one of the later songs that I wrote. I think it was one of the last 3 songs.
Okay.
And it was another one of those, you sit down and you open up your laptop, and I had my telly and I just started pounding out chords. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then I record it, and then I'll go through and I'll kind of play like what I think the melody would be on guitar.
Okay.
I get it like in my memory, and then words will start kind of forming. And so when I got kind of done with it, I had that lead line, and I thought it'd be cool. I just heard sax. You know, sometimes you listen to a song and you hear it in there. And so the guy who plays sax, his name is Chris Bellamy. I had done worship with him at a few conferences, and he's an amazing musician in general. But I had done worship with him where he plays saxophone, and it's such a unique. Like, we talked about it. I did a podcast with him and talked about it that, you know, there's not a lot of kids like, Dad, can you give me a saxophone for my, 15th birthday?
Yeah.
It's usually guitar, drums. You don't see a lot of people running around with a saxophone strapped to their back.
Yeah, not a lot of 13-year-old kids with Kenny G t-shirts or anything like that.
Just me, but like, normal kids don't do that stuff. So it was such a unique thing, and I sent it to him. I was like, hey, I don't know if this will work, but can you just like rip it? And rip it, he did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it came across really cool. So we actually wrote a couple songs that were a little bit more politically, socially charged, without knowing what the climate was obviously going to be like. 6 months on, when the album eventually came out. So I was just wondering, because you have the politicians and celebrities, and he's talking about some of those kind of issues and influences. Was that like a late add to the album? You're kind of seeing things unfold, or was that something a little more prophetic that you wrote, kind of back in the day?
Politicians and Celebrity was the first song I wrote.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so that was June, maybe May. No, I released it in June. So that was probably April, May of 2019.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so
you're way ahead of the times.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to tell you guys this, but I'm a time traveler.
Yeah.
Let me just, spoiler alert, 2020 is going to suck. But
do the Lions ever win a Super Bowl?
The Lions? No, it's just not. They don't. They actually stop being a team after a while.
I already knew the answer to that question, but
that I'm kind of glad to know that. I'll be put out of my misery.
Jesse,
but Tom Brady is still playing.
Yeah, we had one question we were allowed to ask the time traveler, and you went with the question that we already knew the answer
to. Who said we knew? We only have one.
I think that's the rule. I think that's the rule.
I used one. You get one.
I don't know.
Oh, you can have one later. Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm gonna think about it for a little bit while you answer this.
But yeah, so April, May-ish of 2019, I wrote it, and it was after a worship practice night, and I sat down on the steps and I wanted to write kind of like in my mind, I was like, okay, I want to do like a Replacements type of just like straight rock and roll, real straightforward stuff. Replacements is another band that's a huge influence on me, that kind of punk meets a little bit of that Americana stuff. But and I think, that's stuff that's been brewing forever. Basically the song is essentially saying, listen, politicians and celebrities, cool. I'm sure there's some good ones out there. I don't know any, but there's some good ones out there. Chris Pratt, but
they could step forward. That'd be nice.
Yeah, but they're just humans, and really, my whole thing is like 2016 when we had a new president. There was nothing that changed at that moment for me. It didn't change the way I looked at my neighbor. It didn't change the way I was supposed to look at my neighbor. Let me say that, and it didn't change the way. It changed nothing about the way I lived in society. That's up to me. So the president doesn't dictate what I do. The celebrity who says you should vote this way, do that. I don't even know you, bro. And just because you have people that care what you say, I don't. And I don't know why so many of us do. And so the whole point of that song is just saying, listen, they say all this stuff, they script our reality, but they don't live it. And so we should just get over it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it ended up looking pretty prophetic, honestly, because by the time that the album came out, everything was falling apart, I guess.
I'm glad we're past it now. So
yeah, there's nothing wrong anymore, right? No fires or hurricanes.
People are asking me a lot. They're like, "So, did you know?" How would I have known? But no. They're like, or did you write this album in a week? Just when everything exploded? No, I think the themes on the album are stuff that has been plaguing us since the beginning of time. Mm-hmm. They're just magnified in different ways because of the internet, honestly, and social media just allows those things to be blown up most of the time out of proportion, and it's become a weapon. And so that's just why we it's becoming more prevalent and we see it more is because it's now it's weaponized. But it's the same stuff. It's the same old deal. False idols. That's all politicians and celebrities is. It's putting your faith in someone else taking care of loving your neighbor. Make a law so I have to love my neighbor. Well, no, that's not how you do it. You love your neighbor. You don't need a law to tell you to do that. I need someone to tell me how to live my life and be an example. Jesus did that. He's boring. What about Kim Kardashian? Cool, that'll work.
Kanye West.
It's the same old stuff, right?
Yeah.
And house made of mirrors, like the way we disassociate from people who are different than us or they don't think like us. We write them off. We've been doing that since forever. It's just now I get to see it play out, and
it manifests itself in different ways, and I guess a little more prevalent at times. But it's interesting how stuff we may not have even realized, on both sides. I mean, for both of us can probably relate to this, realized how it would resonate with people or how, it could be used to reach people. At the time it was created, ended up being, unbeknownst to us, very timely and very, it would have been anyway. And I think, like you said, they're topics that could speak to people at any time in our civilization's history, but like especially right now, I don't think any of us could have even imagined like how things would snowball. But it is interesting to hear kind of some of the background of where you were at when those songs were written, as opposed to how everything was and where you were at when they ended up being released. But
even I was listening to your guys' album, and I think it's the third song. And you're talking about dehumanizing, and I was in the middle of writing a song like that, because kind of laying out the progression of how do you get from I disagree with this person to this person is literally worse than Hitler. Like, how do you get there? There's got to be some steps in between, and so I'm like mapping that out, thinking through it. But I think like your guys' album, super timely. Mine, there's I feel like there's like a resurgence of punk rock, and I don't want to categorize you, but when I listen to it, I feel like it's got some of those hardcore elements. So which gets its roots from punk rock. And
absolutely.
So it's reactionary, right? So all the punk rock movements and all that stuff, it's all reactionary to what's going on in front of us. In the 70s, the first wave of punk was reactionary to like glam rock and suburbs and things like that. So now we got a lot to talk about, and so I think it's no coincidence, and it's cool to be a part of it. Like that band Lifelong, they put out an album recently too. So there's a bunch of cool stuff coming out.
They're in the two-piece club with us. So.
Oh, are they?
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, they are.
That's awesome. So I didn't know you guys were a two-piece. Originally, and then I was listening to you guys did a podcast with Jason Wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was watching that.
That was our first episode.
And, okay, cool. So I was watching that. I'm like, oh, well, that's pretty hard to do, man. Capture that sound. Two people.
It's it's interesting. It's fun, but we always joke like it's very fun and it's very rewarding. But then when you screw up,
it's there's
no hiding obvious. There's no it's very out there.
There's no saxophonist to come in and rip a mean solo over my bad chord change.
I'm gonna give you guys some tips. Get yourself a saxophone player. I don't even need to play guitar anymore in this band.
Right. Just
look at this guy.
Just turn him up. Put some sunglasses on him. Take his shirt off if you need to, like that video, that guy that plays the George Michael song in the public.
Oh no, he so my buddy who plays saxophone, he's in one of those worship fails videos.
Okay.
Because he busts out Careless Whisper during
oh no. Intentionally, or was he like trying to improv like during no? Oh man.
He does it. He did it with me when we were leading worship at a conference. He did it. And I was on stage and I had to like look away. It's just so beautiful.
And you wonder if there's anybody in the audience that picked up on it. There's
there's a couple. You'll see a couple dads just kind of like I don't know why, but I really like this song.
Oh man, that's great.
The stuff we hide in our jam sessions.
Oh,
We threw a little nod that no one's actually caught yet to a band
which album?
in our in one of our songs. It's we kind of referenced both a guitar riff and a drum fill from a band that was pretty influential to both of us, and no one's quite caught it yet.
Yeah,
I've been waiting.
real short homage. We were thinking people are gonna grab it right away. But the other thing is that we put a couple Easter eggs in there that were a little bit more obvious, and so I think people might have gravitated towards those a little bit more quickly. And
I'm gonna listen for it. But those things are super fun. We so with Kutless, when we do our sound checks and stuff, Pearl Jam was an influence on Kutless. And so there's a riff from Black. We put that during the sound check. We'll play it, but we'll play like the wrong harmonies. And keep like moving up the scale, and people are watching us like, "Oh my god, do they know how to play music?" And we put it in. So I put it in. We do in our set. We do. I think it's "Take Me In." That old worship song. So I do a solo at the end with like fuzz, and it's getting all chaotic, and I'm all.
we often revert to playing like intros to Under Oath songs, but then we start playing like the opposite song. So then like I'm playing a drum fill from one of their jams, and he's playing like the guitar riff from a completely different song. We're like, just it works. It works.
Love it. I love it. I think you have to be actually even better as a band to be able to pull that off. To play it incorrectly, I think you have to actually be better.
Or you just have to be really secure in the fact
there's times where he's like played one of the loop parts in like a completely different time signature, and then I know he's like, we'll look at each other, he'll like turn around and just kind of go,
just say, all right, that was a Dillinger Escape Plan cover.
we
just became a noise band.
Yeah, you guys like at the drive-in.
If we don't catch it early enough, we just have to make the decision to either look really bad or just go for it and play the rest of the song like that.
Have you done that? Have you just powered through and been like, okay, we're gonna?
Yeah, and honestly, when the band started, we were like 95% of the stuff that we did was live looping. So there was that element, and then there was the element of us being much less experienced at doing that stuff. So most of the hiccups and embarrassing stuff happened pretty early on. We've gotten over most of those little bumps in the road now.
It's gotta happen.
Yeah, definitely. I think everybody needs to get knocked down a peg every once in a while, right? You play a really good show one night, and then the next night you just totally play the wrong loop and have the mistake repeated 57 times because you decided to start a band with 2 people and use looping and stuff like that. But
everyone does it, man. Everyone does it. People forget lyrics. We had one of our tour sets. John Micah, for some reason, was like introducing me when I did this solo thing. Mr. Nate Parrish, and the solo is like not super. I'm not gonna like blow your socks off with this. I'm not like a great soloist, but I just went into it, and it was like it was like the worst solo ever, and it was so much worse because he's like, look at Nate, and everyone's just
the spotlight guy shines it right on you, and
I just sucked, and James is just looking over there laughing at me.
But I think that the lesson there is you can't take yourself too seriously, right? Yeah. I mean, like we all want to put on a great performance, and we all want to take pride in what we're doing, but at the same time, when you get up there and you start getting the super inflated ego, people feed off that, and I think people want to listen to bands and be connected to bands that they feel like are down to earth, normal people just like us who don't have 8 million Twitter followers and a shoe brand and a direct line to the president or anything like that. So
well, I have that.
I don't know about you. I have my own line of Crocs. So
what do you think, just since we kind of talked about that, when you have these people who are famous, or they have a lot of influence, whatever they happen to be, politician, celebrity, or otherwise. And there's a lot of pressure right now on individuals like that, or even, individuals who have a platform, but on a much smaller scale, like people like us, to use our platform for, some sort of either perceived positive change. But also, we don't, like you said, and like you say in your album, we don't want people to just, look at us and treat us like we're the, like we're the gold standard. So where's the line there between using your platform and putting out ideas that you really believe in, and not sort of turning yourself into the golden calf that everybody bows down to?
Yeah, it's hard not to. I mean, so I don't think you're inherently bad if you're a politician or a celebrity at all. I just think that it's more about our response to that. Because a person, if you think about it, Michael Jackson's a great example of what we idolize a person and then we destroy them. That's our hobby.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And so and as believers, it's different because there's this weird line of you're given a platform, if you're in a band or whatever, and people are looking to you. They want to hear what you have to say because they're waiting for you to give them the answer. But at the same time, they're looking at us. They're not necessarily saying, they're not going to Jesus. They want, what does Jesus say? But like, I want you to tell me what he says. So it's a lot of pressure, right?
Interpret it through your own lens.
Right. So I think there's we just talked about humility and not taking yourself too seriously. I think that's a huge part of it, because you have to just be okay with telling people, hey, just, I'm a hypocrite just like any other person. So I'm not your God. I'm not your idol. I can help, and I could try to direct you the best I know how, but I'm not the savior. So I think that's a good place to start. And God, he gives us platforms. He gives you a microphone, and you should use it to point people in his direction, like you would at your job or anywhere else. It's just that we really glorify the entertainment industry more than like teachers have so much more impact on people than a freaking guy who puts a ball in a hoop.
Yeah.
But they're, bottom of the barrel payroll. They get, parent teacher conference, they get yelled at. My wife is a teacher. So,
yeah.
And yet they're like, okay, can you teach my kid for 8 hours a day? Thanks. I'll come pick him up in a few hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we're just backwards, dude. And so I think it just comes with humility, admitting that you're imperfect and stating it often, and just doing your best. And for us in the audience of those people, just realizing like they're not perfect. They're just like us. And for some, whatever reason, they have their microphone's louder than ours.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's tough. I don't envy politicians, especially right now. I don't care what side you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just absolutely
everything you do, even like just Twitter is such a great example of like the decay of civilization. It's all on Twitter. It's right there. Open up a timeline and just be like, oh, this is why God destroys stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Makes sense. This is why we can't have nice things.
This is why we can't have nice things, because anyone could make any opinion at all and just be like, I think Star Wars is better than Star Trek, and someone will be like, I'm gonna kill your family. So
yeah.
It's a bummer that you can't even have an opinion. And I would never. It's a tension of exercise your free speech and say what you believe and give your opinion. I think we should, but it's getting more and more difficult to do that, and then also deal with the consequences of things that are ridiculous like that. Like you watch people get canceled daily for God knows what,
Yeah.
There's a Ron Swanson gif that I use quite often when I relay memes or gifs or articles about that kind of stuff to my friends, and I can just picture like I always have this photo in my head of God just sitting up there sometimes and quote unquote getting up every day and just like looking down and just being like, and then, it's just like,
for any of you who only consume the audio version of this this podcast, you're gonna need to go to YouTube to get the full effect there. But yeah.
No, I to answer your question in the short version is, yeah, if you have a platform out there, whatever it is, use it. Be wise, but don't be scared to say what you believe. I really do believe in free speech, like for reals, free speech, not just like I think this is a hot take.
Not free speech, but
I really think people should be allowed to say all of it, hateful things, all of it, because then you know. I don't want a fake version of a person. I don't want your fake like PC answer, and then in your heart you really don't think that. Let me have it. I want the real thing, because then you can go about your life and but we have this whole pretend thing, and that's why you'll have someone who's like this perfectly out, they have their speeches laid out, they're a celebrity, and then a couple months later it's like, that actor got arrested for being this terrible person. You're like, what? He always said really nice things on Twitter. What? Well, he was pretending. Like we all do.
It's very true. I'd rather people be real and know that I need to avoid them, or know that how I need to try and, if it's someone I know, like relate to them, or at least, I don't want to I hate using the word like witness, but like just like, be a person in their life and hopefully be a good, maybe not even as strong of a word as influence, but just like rub off on them a little. Like,
I don't want someone to be scared to tell me what they really think.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to pretend either.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in that kind of world where it's totally fake and it's, everything is an Instagram filter on your face. And
yeah, we had a really good conversation with Andy Atkins from A Plea for Purging, formerly from A Plea for Purging. Now he's just Party On Forever guy, which is awesome. But where he talked about the how difficult it is to maintain sort of that facade when you're on the road and maybe you're really burned out or you're really tired and stuff like that. And I know,
especially he touched on like how it was and we did too a little bit, like in the Christian industry too, and feeling like, or it's some artists at times feeling like they have to be a certain version of themselves to not put on a face, but kind of, portray a certain mood or temperament,
exactly,
as opposed to what they really are or are feeling.
Right. And so with Kutless kind of being in that more mainstream, where the eyeballs on you are, a lot more numerous than on some of us that are playing in dive bars and stuff like that. What have you experienced that, and relating to the people that come and see you guys play and that sort of thing?
Yeah, actually, Kutless has never been criticized in their entire existence. The music industry bloggers have been super gracious. There's a whole website with like this. It's like one of my favorite things ever. It's amazing. But this guy just basically saying how Kutless is satanic, and like he's being very specific. No, yeah, it's really funny. Because he's like, James wears a pentagram tattoo. First of all, you don't wear a tattoo, okay? But James doesn't have a pentagram tattoo. What are you talking about? And then he says like he wears eyeliner and laughs about it. Because there's a picture of James. He's like laughing, and he happens to have eyeliner. And the guy's like, he laughs about wearing makeup.
I just Googled it. It's actually very funny.
KutlessIsSatanic.com. Is that what we don't?
No, I won't say it.
we don't need to tell.
It's amazing. All that to say. So they've gotten, they've been doing it for years, but they got some tough skin, I mean, anytime you have, the bigger your platform, the more people think they can pass judgment on the small microcosm of your life that they see, the snapshot. I was having a bad day, so when a fan was like, hey, can you sign my forehead? I was like, oh, no, or whatever. I have to go to the bathroom. Then they're like, that Nate guy sucks. He says he's a Christian, but he wouldn't sign my face. And he's mean. That's like 2 seconds of my entire life.
Right.
That will be like, that's who he is. And it's so you have to be kind of okay just accepting of like that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It comes
Do your
along with
best.
the
You do
territory.
your best, but you're human, so things will happen. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. And I think that, what you're talking about, when Christian artists like fall away from the faith or they walk away, I wonder if a lot of that is because they never actually asked the questions that they've been wanting to ask for like decades, because they don't want to get like judged by someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And eventually it festers, it bottles up, they don't get any answers, and they're just like, I'm out.
Yeah. Kind of goes back to your whole thing of free speech, and it's even specifically relating to this topic of like in the church, especially for young people, feeling like it's not okay to not be okay, or to maybe have some thoughts that go against the mold, or maybe some doubts of on certain things, and like you said, it just bottles up, and then it all comes out at once they're finally kind of let loose in the world. And it's sad to see. It's unfortunate, but that's definitely, I mean, I didn't experience as much of that, luckily, in the church environment I grew up in, but like had friends all the time, and still do, people that say, I still kind of guess I would say I love God, but like,
I don't
man,
like the
like,
church. That's
yeah, like,
I love Jesus, but not the church. Like, well,
and that's
Yeah.
such an overarching theme of like, yeah, like I started, like this happened in my life, like a big, it was either a big catastrophic event happened in their life, or they just started doubting things, and they were like, and all people did was like talk down to me and like tell me to like, oh, you can't say that, or you can't ask that here. And that's what rubbed me, turned me off of it. And it's unfortunate. And I think the same thing happens even like in politics, or in just in general worldviews, is people, instead of engaging in constructive conversation, getting to know each other, or like you said, like knowing who someone really is, they just unplug, and they're just like, that's, they see something, and then they're just like, nope, that's who they are, I'm not dealing with it.
I got my sound bite. No thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at the
No.
risk of giving the impression to somebody who might be listening to this who has not played in a band that has gone on tour, that all of this is negative, and that you're just waiting for the moment that you forget to sign some kid's forehead and everybody hates you. One of the
That's
things.
not happened, by the way. That's off the top of my head.
Right.
Get it?
There's some random kid that goes on Twitter tomorrow. We're like,
that was me.
Trending,
that happened to me.
Number one trending topic is
Yeah.
Kutless guitarist doesn't sign face.
Yeah, it turns out you were just trying to protect him from like those inks soaking into his head, and then you would have been the bad guy too. So, but
no, actually, yeah, truthfully, I am the guy who will stop and sign your
right, right. But I think on the flip side, all of us are super excited and anxious for the day that we can return to playing live shows and stuff like that. So one of the things that we've been doing on this show is kind of wrapping episodes up by anytime that we speak with somebody who's either a musician or on the road in some capacity, with just asking them to give us maybe a funny or crazy or self-deprecating story from the road, that we can all kind of have a good chuckle about and remember the days 8 million years ago when live music was actually a thing. So do you have anything for us?
One of the only ones that's coming to my mind. So my first band, we were like a rock worship band. And so we're like, yeah, it's worship, but it's like rock too. And I was like, I was a screamer and stuff. And so we played at this little church in Mississippi. And we were like, well, we're going to do an acoustic set because we don't want to like blow their hair back, And so we do the acoustic set. I'm on acoustic, 2 acoustics, bass, and a cajon.
Okay.
We go into Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
Have you heard the song? Familiar?
Yeah. Once or twice. Yeah.
Once or twice.
Yeah.
The people in the crowd were plugging their ears and walking out during our acoustic version of Amazing Grace. And so amazing. So amazing Grace. And so the second service, my friend Sean, he was a bass player. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to play. I'm just going to go film the reaction. So he went and he filmed behind it, and you could see people like looking over at and being like, what is this? And we thought we were like toning it down, like, okay, we're going to meet them where they're at.
Right.
usher him into the presence. And no, they were like, oh, this band's satanic. And
Wow.
so our bus actually had broken down there. And there was this guy
at the place where nobody likes you.
Yes. The guy from the congregation, he was like, well, I'm a mechanic. I'll look at it. So he came to us afterwards because that night we did our full throttle like concert.
Yeah.
That night. And he came, he's like, all right, I want to tell you something. You kids, you're coming in here with your tattoos and your shirts. And your shirts.
Yeah, did he not want you to wear a shirt?
Wait, am I supposed to wear a shirt? I thought I was. And the funniest part is, so I'm the only one in the band with tattoos. And so everything he's listing is like your tattoos and your shirts and your long hair that's kind of going gray a little bit, and your caramel colored skin. You're coming in here, and he's just like directly talking to me. I'm like, should I leave? And he's like, you kids come in here like that. He's like, but I think you're good kids, and I respect what you're doing. So I fixed your van for free.
Wow. Exact opposite of what I thought you were about to say.
I know, right? So all I have to say, just the same way we don't want people judging us, we just got to remember that when it's our turn, when we look at people and we think that they're whatever, Mississippi folk that don't like rock and roll or whatever.
Right.
You never know, man.
Well, it's to not play in Mississippi, or maybe we want to play in Mississippi just to experience that.
Yeah, I think
just don't wear shirts, and I think
so shirts. I think I'll play anywhere right now. To be honest,
cover your tattoos without a shirt, maybe just with makeup.
Right. That's funny because it's great to have a tour story that has a moral to it, because most of the morals of our tour stories are like, don't start a fire in the wilderness on the side of the road. Or,
hey, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Or like, don't drink a cup full of the bass player's back sweat or something like that.
Or don't go tubing down a sewage runoff river.
Yeah. See, these are no-brainers. I could have told you that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how much we're educating people about that.
I know tons of stuff.
That's great. All right. Well, we really appreciate you being on today, but before we end, I did not use my question for the time traveler yet.
Okay. I'm ready.
Question for the time traveler: look into the future and let us know, when is live music returning?
Oh, you put him on the spot.
My time travels. All right, you want to hear my prediction?
Yes.
I think we'll be back at it in January.
All right. Wow, that's optimistic.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting
I'm
that.
liking it.
Sure.
I'm liking
We'll
it.
be back at it in January, because eventually all the rock and rollers will be like, yeah, we're going to do this.
It's valid. Very, very valid point.
Right.
I don't want to get too snarky, but if we call it a protest, I think we can.
You probably get away with it.
What about the band The Protest? They could probably do shows.
I think
they just did some.
Yeah, so they're apparently, maybe they are protesting.
Staying true to their name.
Yeah, I guess so. Protesting the rules, apparently. So, all right. Well, Nate, thank you so much for being on with us today. If people want to connect with you, what's the best place to check out what you're doing?
Social media, anything?
MySpace/Nate Parrish /MySpace. NateParrish.com is probably the easiest.
Cool.
Yeah, it's my name, and it's got links to everything on there, and yeah, man.
Awesome.
We'll throw a link for that down below for anyone that's listening. Yep. If you're listening on a platform that does not feature the link in the description, head over to our YouTube. It'll be there, and you can find all this stuff.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again, Nate. We appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you out there in January for your predictions.
Yes. So we can go play that church with no shirts on together.
Arson, Nate Parrish. I'll open for you guys, obviously.
No, other way around.
No,
other way around.
No. Actually, I'm gonna need a band, so if you guys can band, that'd be great.
If we can borrow your saxophonist, we'll do it.
There it is.
Convince him to feature on our next album.
Yeah, there you go.
Good. I'm telling you.
All right, man. We'll have a good one, and we'll talk to you again soon.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the American Arson podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a positive comment or review. Connect with us online through Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter, and check out Americanarson.com for music, merch, and upcoming tour dates. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, stay inspired, stay positive, and keep creating.